1.7 million Ghana cedis was allocated for a nationwide program to sensitize and train Masloc loan beneficiaries. The idea was to educate about loan usage by giving a token allowance, 20 Ghana cedis each, of some 85,300 participants. But in reality, only 1,300 cedis was documented as spent for its intended purpose. Over 1.7 million Ghana cedis in public funds meant for this outreach simply could not be accounted for. Hi, welcome to the channel. On this channel, we discuss the news making the headlines, and I'm glad you could join me today. My name is always KB Japan, and let's jump straight into it. Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu is a Ghanaian public sector executive and development finance manager, best known for her tenure as the CEO of Masloc, the Microfinance and Small Loans Center. This is a government agency in Ghana that provides microloans and small credit to low-income entrepreneurs and businesses, often to support women traders, youth startups, and grassroots enterprises. Sedina's appointment as Masloc's chief placed her at the forefront of national initiatives to spur entrepreneurship and to alleviate poverty through microfinance. Appointed during the administration of President John Dramani Mahama, Sedina served as Masloc's CEO roughly between 2013 and 2016, aligning with Mahama's term in office. Her position was a political appointment under the center-left National Democratic Congress, NDC government. She was publicly associated with the NDC party. This political affiliation is noteworthy in Ghana's two-party dominant system. High-profile appointees like her are often swept up in the partisan tides that follow when governments change. Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu came into the role with a background in marketing and finance. She earned a master's degree in international retail marketing from the University of Surrey in the UK and had interest in public administration. Colleagues recall that during her Masloc tenure, she was visible in promoting small businesses' growth and women's empowerment programs. For a time, she was a respected technocrat in the public eye, tasked with disbursing small loans to thousands of beneficiaries across Ghana. However, Sedina's rise to prominence was soon overshadowed by serious allegations. Today, her name is less associated with microfinance successes and more with a high-profile corruption trial that has gripped Ghana's media since the late 2010s. To understand how we got here, we must examine the accusations leveled against her and the legal journey that has followed since. Not long after a new government took office in 2017, led by the New Patriotic Party, a spotlight was turned on Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu stewardship of the Masloc loans. Audit and investigation allegedly uncovered that between 2013 and 2016, large sums of money under Masloc programs was misappropriated or unaccounted for. By 2018, Ghana's Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO, and state prosecutors had built a case accusing Sedina and a top Masloc colleague of serious financial crimes. In 2019, she was formally charged with 78 counts of criminal offenses ranging from the following: causing financial loss to the state, i.e. engaging in decisions or actions that led to the loss of government funds, theft and conspiracy to steal, misappropriating government money for personal or unauthorized use, money laundering, handling or transferring illicit funds in a way that conceals their origin, and then breaches of public procurement laws, ignoring due process or inflating cost in the purchase of goods and services for Masloc, it is alleged. At the heart of the Masloc scandal were several specific financial irregularities. One example cited in court involved a 500,000 Ghana cedi loan Masloc placed with private financial institutions named Obatampa Microfinance as part of its lending schemes. When Masloc, under Sedina's direction, demanded an unusually high 24% interest on that placement, the institution opted to refund the principal. Evidence showed that the refund was issued, yet the money never reflected in Masloc's account. Essentially, prosecutors argued that these funds disappeared after being retrieved. In another instance, 1.7 million Ghana cedis was allocated for a nationwide program to sensitize and train Masloc loan beneficiaries. The idea was to educate about loan usage by giving a token allowance, 20 Ghana cedis each, of some 85,300 participants. But in reality, only 1,300 cedis was documented as spent for its intended purpose. Over 1.7 million Ghana cedis in public funds meant for this outreach simply could not be accounted for, suggesting it was siphoned off. Likewise, Masloc under Sedina's watch received 1.46 million Ghana cedis to assist victims of a major fire at Accra Kantamanto Market, a disaster relief fund for struggling traders. Investigations found less than half of that money was actually given out to the fire victims. The rest effectively vanished or was unlawfully appropriated. These findings were especially damning because they imply that money intended for poor traders in crisis was allegedly pocketed by officials. The charges also covered procurement malpractices. Masloc had purchased vehicles and hundreds of Samsung phones for its operations, but auditors found that the prices paid were far above market rate, even though buying in bulk should have been cheaper. The suggestion was that these contracts were used as conduit to overpay vendors and possibly receive kickbacks or to divert the excess funds. Such revelations painted a picture of excessive corruption. In total, the financial loss to the state was pegged around 90 million Ghana cedis, about $15 million at the time, due to the actions of Sedina and her collaborators. It is no surprise that the public outrage grew as these details trickled into media reports and court hearings. The stage was set for a major corruption trial, one that would test Ghana's resolve to hold officials accountable. In 2019, Ghana's Attorney General's Department brought Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu and a co-accused to court, formally kicking off the trial. A co-accused was Mr. Daniel Axim, who had served as Masloc's chief operating officer, sometimes described as operations manager under her. The two faced the 78 counts together. From the onset, Sedina pleaded not guilty to all charges. The trial was held in an Accra High Court by Justice Efia Sewa Asari-Botwe. The prosecuting marshaled evidence and witnesses over time. 6 witnesses were called by the state to testify to the financial misconduct. These likely included investigators, auditors, perhaps Masloc local staff, and officials from the finance ministry or banks involved in the transactions. As often happens in protracted white-collar crimes cases, progress was slow and methodical. Ghana's judicial process allowed the defense ample time for rebuttals, and the case saw numerous adjournments. By 2020, the trial was still underway, inching forward amid legal maneuvers and the complicities of forensic financial evidence. A major twist to the case came in 2021. Partway through the trial, Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu left Ghana. She had petitioned the court for permission to travel abroad, reportedly to seek medical treatment in the United States. At that time, it is not unusual for court to grant a brief leave for medical reasons if a defendant provides some assurance of return, often by surrounding passports after or having sureties guarantee their return. 2 prominent individuals, Alex Mode, a former CEO of Ghana's National Oil Company, GNPC, and Gavivina Tamakloe, reportedly a relative of Sedina and a well-known actor, acted as guarantors for her bail. They each signed a 5 million Ghana cedis bail bond, undertaking that Sedina would return to stand trial. Sedina departed Ghana in 2021 after securing this leave. She never came back, citing health issues. She remained abroad well beyond her authorized medical leave. Repeated summons for her to reappear in court went unheeded. By late 2020, it became clear that Sedina had effectively absconded and was unwilling to continue with the trial in Ghana, it is alleged. Her exact whereabouts were not publicly confirmed at first, but it was suspected that she was living in the United States. Facing this situation, prosecutors took a hardline response. In February 2023, they applied to the High Court for the trial to proceed in absentia, meaning in her absence. Ghana's criminal procedure permits that there's certain conditions, especially when accused willfully evades justice after the trial has begun. On February 24, 2023, the court granted the application to try Sedina in absentia. This is a notable decision. Trials in absentia are relatively rare and indicate the court was convinced Sedina's absence was deliberate and unjustified. As a consequence, Sedina's sureties paid a heavy price. The court in January 2023 ordered Alex Mould and Sedina Tamakloe to forfeit the 5 million Ghana cedi bail bond to the state, since they failed to produce Sedina as promised. This was a stern message. Those who vouch for fugitives will be penalized. It also brought to light that Sedina had effectively betrayed the trust of her guarantors by disappearing. From that point on, the trial continued without the accused present. Daniel Axim, the co-accused, did remain in Ghana throughout and was physically present in court. In fact, Axim took to the stand in his own defense, though he called no additional defense witnesses. Sedina's legal team could only participate in a limited capacity given her non-cooperation. Essentially, the court heard the prosecution's evidence and whatever Daniel Axim offered, but Sedina herself offered no testimony or defense. The scales were tipped heavily against her, given the unchallenged evidence of the state. In April 2024, the High Court delivered its verdict. It found Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu guilty on all counts and convicted her in absentia. The litany of the 78 charges, from willfully causing 90 million Ghana cedi financial loss to the state to stealing, conspiracy, money laundering, and procurement breaches, had been proven to the court's satisfaction. Her colleague, Daniel Axim, was likewise found guilty, though on somewhat narrower basis. He was essentially found to have facilitated her actions, for example, by raising false memos 23 times to withdraw funds on her orders. Sedina was sentenced to 10 years in prison with hard labor, a stiff sentence by Ghanaian standards for a non-violent financial crime. It reflects the enormous sums involved and the breach of the public trust. The judge highlighted the gravity of her offenses. Under Sedina's leadership, Masloc's funds meant for the vulnerable had been diverted for personal gains, undermining a government poverty alleviation program. The message was that high-level corruption would not be treated with impunity. A co-conspirator, Daniel Axim, received a 5-year prison sentence, also with hard labor, a lighter term in line with his subordinate role and perhaps his cooperation by standing trial. Axim had been incarcerated since the April of 2024 conviction, even as he filed an appeal. By January 2026, Ghana's Supreme Court granted Daniel Axim bail pending appeal after he had already served nearly 2 years, a sign of how slowly appeals can move. Following the conviction in April 2024, Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu became one of Ghana's most wanted fugitives. The onus was on the authorities to locate and extradite her to serve her prison term. The case now moved from Ghana's court to the arena of international law enforcement cooperation. It emerged that Sedina had been living in the United States of America, the very country she had cited for medical care. Ghana and the US have an extradition treaty and generally cooperate on law enforcement matters. So in July 2024, the government of Ghana formally submitted an extradition request to the United States seeking Sedina's return. This request presumably included a Ghanaian court's judgment and evidence of her fugitive status. For a while, little news came out about her whereabouts, leading to public speculation. Then in January 2026, there was a breakthrough. US Marshals arrested Sedina Tamakloe-Attionu on January 6, 2026 in Nevada. She was detained at the Nevada Southern Detention Center, a federal facility in the desert outside Las Vegas that often holds individuals awaiting extradition or immigration proceedings. Ghana's ambassador to the US, Mr. Victor Smith, confirmed that Sedina had been taken into custody pending extradition proceedings in the US courts. This development was significant and somewhat unprecedented, a signal that fleeing abroad was not a foolproof escape. Ghanaian officials expressed determination to see Sedina brought back to Ghana to face her jail term. As it stands, we await to see the aftermath of the proceedings in the US court and whether extraditions will take place or not. We'll keep following this story as it progresses. Thank you very much for joining me.